Hi, welcome back to another Crypto Dave video. It's Friday afternoon, which means another weekly crypto roundup video. Now, apologies, I haven't done these for a couple of weeks. I've been out and about. I was away for a week, and then last week just really busy with other stuff, so I haven't had a chance to do them for a couple of weeks. But I'm back now, and I'll try and be a little bit more regular with them in future. But before we jump into any of the stories this week, let's start by talking about the market. I mean, this is the big story on everybody's lips really over the last few weeks. Now, when I did the last update video, that was 3 weeks ago, the market cap up here was about 290 billion. We're down to just under 215 billion now, so that's 75 billion off in 3 weeks. Bitcoin dominance up massively as all the alts have really tanked. So the altcoins almost across the board have really struggled in the last few weeks. Bitcoin's down a chunk, but the alts are the ones that have really suffered. Bitcoin dominance well over 50% here. And I remember it wasn't that many, only a couple of months ago probably, when Bitcoin dominance was around that sort of late 30s. It was under 40 for a long time. I remember when it went back to 40% seemed seemed quite dramatic at the time, but that wasn't that long ago now, and now well over 50%. We'll see if that continues to continue. The alts are staging a little bit of a rally. If we look down here, we had this basically a kind of all-time low for this year, which was just here a few days ago, middle of the week, and we've seen a little bit of a pullback from there. Bitcoin's back to where it was basically at the beginning of the week. A lot of alts over the last couple of days, pretty much the same pattern across the board. They're recovering some of those kind of losses, but the crypto markets have been devastated really in the last kind of few weeks. We've lost a huge amount of kind of money, a huge amount of kind of confidence, and investment seems to have been sort of draining out of the kind of market. And I think this is reflected across kind of Reddit and stuff like that. So if we jump over here to the cryptocurrency Reddit, I just had a quick scroll through before I did this video, and it reeks a little bit of desperation. So there's the usual stuff, sort of like general news and bits and bobs like that. But then, we look at this article, and it's, I'm not having a go at people, but it's an article that says, or the topic says, adoption confirmed. USAA just sent this informational article about cryptocurrencies to its 12 million members. And then the first comment was, I got this about a month ago. It wasn't compelling people to invest, just telling them it's a future thing, so you might want to familiarize yourself with it. So completely different to the the article kind of headline. So this was like, adoption confirmed, this is what's going to kind of push kind of cryptocurrency up. And then everybody's like, look, this isn't adoption, this is nothing like adoption. It's not even promotion. It's just kind of news or information. So you can sense a little bit of desperation. I think that people are desperate to kind of believe, they're desperate to cling on to some kind of good news. The markets have been creeping back up the last couple of days, and which is great. It's awful to wake up every morning, see a sea of red, see your portfolio go down in value. I accept that, but these kind of stories don't have any basis in reality. I mean, we look here, another one, Nasdaq closer to listing cryptocurrencies as Gemini relationship deepens. So they've been talking about this for ages. Gemini, the Winklevoss ETF, which was rejected. They're desperate to get into kind of institutional kind of. Undoubtedly, they're talking to different people, but it doesn't mean it's going to kind of come off. And then it's quite a good, actually, first reply here. So cutting through the bullshit, they are still talking about maybe doing it, which means they still need to. And then a big list of things that they haven't actually kind of done. But I think people are so desperate for kind of good news. They're so desperate to kind of to say, look, we have made the right decision. Crypto is going to go to the moon. We're going to make money. Everything's going to be okay. That I think there seems to be just a bit of kind of madness across social media, across Reddit and Twitter and Bitcoin Talk and some of the kind of the usual kind of suspects. And it's it's one of those things. The markets are down massively. Yeah, it's tough to see. I believe in cryptocurrencies. My mining and staking kind of portfolio, so my mining kind of portfolio, is down, I don't know, $125,000 in the last 6 months. Now I said, last year when everything started going up, I wasn't going to take anything out to the end of 2019. Now, in hindsight, I should have taken a good chunk out at the beginning of the year, but for me, it's not a big issue. This is mostly stuff that I mined a long time ago that suddenly became kind of worthwhile, and stuff that I've kind of traded from that. And I understand if you've invested, end of last year, beginning of this year, when Bitcoin was up at sort of like late teens, between $15,000 and $20,000, it's tough to see it down here at $6,500. To be fair, most of the altcoins are far worse than that. So if Bitcoin's down to a third of what it was sort of towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, a lot of altcoins are down 80% kind of plus. So it's tough. Times are tough. The markets are kind of down. Will this continue? I personally don't think so. I think everything will start to kind of turn around again eventually. But I don't know. I don't know the timelines. Nobody kind of knows the timelines. It's easy to get surrounded by people who believe in the same things that you do. So the crypto community is very, very small compared to kind of the global community, and it's very easy. One person posts a positive story or a reason why the markets could go up, or we could get lots of institutional money or something like that, and everybody kind of agrees and everybody kind of wants to jump on that because they want it to be true. But just wanting something to be true does not necessarily make it true. I believe in cryptocurrencies. I believe in kind of blockchain technology. I think Bitcoin and some of the larger kind of cryptocurrencies will do well. I completely believe that the vast majority of these, however many we've got, 2,000 odd, will probably go to nothing or near to nothing. But there will be some real winners. I believe that, but I don't know. You can't trust me. I'm just some guy on YouTube, just like everybody else. Everybody's an expert in hindsight, but the reality is that nobody knows when the market's going to turn, when it's going to go back up. We have 3 or 4 days of good kind of like gains, and everybody's talking about a bull market, but nobody's talking about the fact that we're still across most coins probably about 80% down on the all-time high from January. So if you believe in cryptocurrency in the long term, my advice would be just hold tight, stay in there. I do a little bit of kind of trading, but nothing kind of massively. And the markets are so volatile. I think, you could get some good trades off. You might, anybody that went into Tether early in the year will obviously be in a good position now. But, there was no telling when the market would reach the bottom, when the market would kind of turn around. And, unless you're kind of an expert kind of trader, or you've got that kind of technical kind of analysis and kind of background, I wouldn't worry about that. If you believe in it in the long term, ride it out. If you're desperate for the kind of money and you've put money in that you shouldn't have put in and stuff like that, you may want to take kind of some out and cut your losses. But my feeling is that kind of cryptos will go up. I think we'll see ourselves well above this kind of like level by the end of the kind of year, but I could be completely wrong. We could be drifting along like this. We could be drifting even a little bit lower until the end of the year, and then we might see a big spike next year. But I personally think it's we seem to be, I don't know, my feeling is that we're around that kind of bottom. I think that sort of 200 odd kind of billion mark, kind of across the kind of board is probably a sort of like a reasonable kind of level. But I don't know. We could crash again next week. We could go down to 150, 130 billion. I really don't know. And that's, I suppose, the point. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Look at the kind of projects you like. Invest in the kind of the long term. Don't panic about the day-to-day kind of swings in kind of prices, unless, as I say, you are trading or you're desperate to get some money out of the markets. Anyway, just my kind of thoughts on basically on the kind of markets and what's kind of been happening in the last few weeks. So let's jump over to the first story I wanted to touch on this week, and that's Genesis Mining. So cloud mining has had a pretty bad rep, particularly recently. So the big increase in Bitcoin difficulty, along with the decrease in kind of price, meant that Hashflare turned all their SHA-256 contracts off a few weeks ago. Then they turned around and put them back on and said, "Oh, we've found a way to reduce the kind of maintenance fee." So they kind of put those back on. And then we've had a similar thing with Genesis Mining. So their older kind of contracts, where the maintenance fee is pretty high, are all unprofitable. Even fairly recent ones. So I have a Bitcoin contract that went live in February this year that hasn't been making anything, so it's made nothing in the last 10 days. I haven't received that email on this particular account saying that it's going to be turned off, but unless we see a decent increase in Bitcoin price, these mining contracts are just not profitable. The difficulty increase has really destroyed any chance of them being profitable. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. So they've been offering a sort of reduced fee to upgrade existing kind of mining contracts to this new sort of system that they have, where the maintenance fee, so the daily maintenance fee or a maintenance fee per hash will be a lot lower and stuff like that. And I believe they're offering a discount to people with existing kind of contracts. But I think the reality is that you bought your contract. It either has or hasn't made you your money back, depending on when you'd actually kind of purchased it. And now, I wouldn't dream of then paying more for the same kind of contract in order to kind of, increase it to one of these kind of premium 5-year contracts. Even with one of these new kind of 5-year contracts, they still have a management fee that's quoted in US dollars, so I think it's 14 cents per terahash. So it's only a matter of time. They're like, oh, it's a 5-year contract, we're never going to kind of terminate them, but it's only a matter of time before the amount that you're kind of mining is less than the maintenance fees. With even if they don't terminate the contract, there's going to be no money coming in. So I would strongly advise to steer clear of these services. I think the reality at the moment is that cloud mining worked quite well when the price was going up substantially last year. What we've seen this year is that the price has gone down, and that coupled with the difficulty, which continues to increase. And I think for a lot of people now, they're mining at a loss. If you had to convert immediately into US dollars or euros or pounds or whatever, I think a lot of these mining companies probably around that kind of breaking even, or even kind of mining at a bit of a loss depending on electricity costs. So these people are mining for future gains, obviously, but cloud mining as it is, I think, will basically be consigned. I can't see more people kind of buying into this kind of into these kind of contracts. Now I understand Genesis Miner trying to desperately probably get a little bit more money. Undoubtedly at the moment nobody's buying contracts because it's just not profitable. So them sort of moving people onto a new service, some people are kicking off and saying, they should be doing it for free. Genesis are saying, well, obviously we can't do it for free. We've bought like loads of new infrastructure. We've bought more efficient miners, etc., etc. We have costs to kind of cover. I think the reality is that kind of cloud mining just is not profitable. In an extreme bull market, it may be profitable, but then again, you almost always get more by actually kind of buying the coins rather than mining them. Anyway, on a sort of similar-ish kind of note, there was this article, so Nvidia stock has fallen, so the Q3 revenue estimates hit by crypto mining decline. And, if you think that sort of SHA-256 and the sort of ASIC kind of base mining is doing kind of badly, GPU mining has been absolutely devastated the last few months. It's pretty much impossible to kind of break even unless your electricity is really, really kind of minimal. I've sort of switched off pretty much all my GPU stuff now. And it's quite interesting. So it's interesting to see quite how much kind of Nvidia had been relying on their kind of crypto kind of profits and their graphics card profits, GPU profits last year. So obviously they were selling a huge number of graphics cards. They could pretty much sell them at any price because everything had a break even of about a few months, maybe 3 months, even at sort of like $800-900 for fairly kind of mid-priced GPU. But now, difficulty's gone up. We've had ASICs that have jumped into a lot of the algorithms that were GPU only before, like Equihash, and that's really kind of devastated GPU mining. That with the decreasing kind of price, particularly among alts. So most GPU mining is kind of altcoins, and often sort of smallerish kind of altcoins, and they have been devastated as well. So the price of those down maybe say 80% are kind of across the board, which means it's just not profitable. So this is obviously affecting how many GPUs Nvidia can sell, which is affecting their stock price. So it's quite interesting to see what's happening, to see what quite a large impact GPU mining has had on Nvidia. Anyway, let's jump over to the next story, and this is it's something I touched on. It seems ages ago, maybe 6 months ago now, and it's so there's been a lot of talk about kind of an ETF, and what a lot of people didn't know was that there was an ETN, so an exchange traded note. It's been listed on the Swedish stock exchange for a while. I believe there was one in Stockholm. There might have been one on the Paris Stock Exchange as well. I might be misremembering that. But anyway, they've been tweaking around the kind of edges. So they've been tweaking really to try and get US investors, I think, into this. So you can see here, we read kind of through it. So Bitcoin-based ETN listed on the Nasdaq Stockholm Exchange is being quoted in dollars. So this is really, so before I presume it was in Swedish krona, and now it's going to be quoted in kind of dollars under a different kind of ticker. So it's, as I say here, so ETNs are close cousins to ETFs. There's a few key differences. You can read all about, there's a lot of stories about this, but it was quite interesting to see that you know, there is this appetite. I think there is an appetite for an ETF or for sort of institutional money, or an easier way for some of these kind of larger kind of players to buy kind of cryptocurrencies. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually gets some traction. So yeah, as we can see here, so it's offered in euros and kronas. It's now quoted in dollars, so it's trying to market itself towards US investors. We'll have to see. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks whether we get some updates on this story, how much kind of money has been going into this in the next kind of few weeks. But potentially could be an interesting thing. I think, you know, people who are clamoring for ETFs are now going, well, you know, it will happen kind of eventually, but, you know, it might not be in the next few months. You know, everybody was quite bullish on the Chicago-based one, which then delayed till September, their decision. And I imagine in September it will be either delayed again or probably declined. I don't know. I mean, you would think eventually one will get approved, but, you know, it could be a long process. It might be next month, might be next year, might be the year after that, who knows. But it'd be interesting to see, you know, if there is that kind of like demand for that kind of product, what alternatives can be kind of made available for institutional investors. And this is, you know, obviously one way that, you know, an existing kind of product can start targeting a new market. And then lastly this week, so I read some bits on kind of Twitter, and I think it was Wow Panda on Twitter was saying that Buterin was shilling Bcash, and there was a Forbes article, which it turns out now, or Vitalik now sort of claims it was kind of like there was a lot of kind of it was kind of like badly kind of quoted, and then there was some translation kind of errors and stuff like that. But he basically kind of said that, you know, he thought, you know, he loved this situation where you could walk into a convenience store, you know, get a card and pay a very small fee to be getting any kind of cryptocurrency. So I think he quoted Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, whatever. And this was kind of like sort of like mistranslated or whatever to be, I want to be able to walk into a convenience store, get a card and pay a small fee to start using Bitcoin Cash. So it's not what he said. I think Bitcoin Cash was one of the currencies he quoted being one of the kind of larger currencies out there, along with others. So he also claims that the whole article is riddled with transcription errors, some of which make no sense. So it was kind of interesting, isn't it, how people grab on a little bit of a kind of story or a misquote or what they think is a kind of quote and try and extrapolate out from that. So this was really big news across kind of social media until, you know, he responded and said, look, this is kind of nonsense. It's not what I said, or it's, you know, you're taking a very small bit of what I said kind of out of context. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for bearing with me while I've been away and rushing around with other stuff. I've got plans for a lot more videos in the next few weeks. I've got a little bit more time on my hands over the summer, so hopefully I get a good few videos out over the next few weeks. But thanks again for watching. Give me a thumbs up, that would be great. Let me know any comments below, and hopefully I will see you on the next video. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.